This is the East Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
That's right. Welcome in another edition of the East Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, Season 2, Episode 2. Brandon Baney, as always, joined by our District 5 and 6 resident expert, Sean Kane. What's going on, Sean?
Hey, man, I like the new intro. I like the new intro. That was pretty sweet.
Little edgier.
Yeah, it fits me.
Definitely. Well, you are broadcasting to us from a darkly lit place. No, it's I like the contrasted light. It looks good. So friendly reminder, if you want to see where we're broadcasting from, you can check out the video version of this Prepcast each and every week on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel or Facebook page. Audio only as well at IdahoSports.com. Across the top of the homepage, you'll see all these different tabs. You're looking for Prepcasts. From there, there's a drop-down menu, and you click on East Idaho Prepcast. It'll take you there. You can also download this podcast wherever you download your podcasts: Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, etc. And if you're going to download the podcast, you might as well just subscribe to it. Hit that subscribe button, takes 2 seconds, and that way it just automatically gets downloaded to your phone, tablet, computer, whatever you're using. You don't have to go looking for it every week. And honestly, if you're one of our YouTube diehards and you check it out every week on YouTube, there's a little notification bell you can hit. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. If you hit that bell, every time we come out with something new, you get a little notification as well. So that's an easy way to also know when we're coming out with new content. So those are the different ways you can chop it up with us each week. This is the East Idaho Prepcast, breaking down everything in Districts 5 and 6, week in, week out. So here we are, Sean, the opening weekend of competition. I know up north, golf actually started. There was a golf invitational on Monday, and I've been so buried in season previews and stuff, I haven't had a chance to really check in on golf too much, but it is moving to the fall. I assume that golf is also hit the ground running.
Yeah, I mean, hey, if you're a spring sports person and you saw the weather out right now, you would say, yeah, let's play right now. You would take any sort of nice weather, especially up north. I mean, I complain, but it's even worse up there. I know the weather wise, so I'm sure if it's nice out there, they're like, yeah, let's go play a few rounds for sure.
No doubt. And before we get into the fall sports conversation completely, we did want to give one last nod to the boys of summer, if you will. This week in North Carolina, for the third consecutive, not consecutive year, but the third consecutive American Legion World Series tournament, the Idaho Falls Bandits got all the way to the championship game. And so these are players from all over the city. You know, there's a lot of Bonneville kids that are on the team. It's Idaho Falls. It's I think a kid or two from Thunder. It's kind of a mix of Idaho Falls' best, and they have really dominated the American Legion baseball scene, not just in Idaho, not just in the Northwest region, but nationwide. So in 2019, the Bandits win the World Series. In 2020, tournament gets canceled because of COVID. 2021, the Bandits go back and win the World Series. And this year, they get all the way to the championship game, and they lose to a team from Alabama. It was the Alabama team's first ever World Series championship. So congratulations to them. And boy, what a run for the Bandits. You know, when you look all the way back to 2019 to now, Sean, that's an entire group of kids that have gone through. Yeah, an entire
whole class with Price and Mixons, people. Like, yeah, it's basically 4 years. So you've maybe had someone who started and I mean, that's all. It's generational, right? There's going to be people that know that, and that's how you build a program, right? People have been involved, and so if it's 4 years, you can call that, you know, like 8 years for how long that spreads out forward and backwards.
Yeah, and so they came back. We're recording this Thursday night, August 17th. They came back earlier today, and there was a big celebration for them at Melaleuca Field in Idaho Falls, where the Idaho Falls Chuckers play, minor league baseball team. And it was just a big celebration. It was really cool to see, and congratulations to the Idaho Falls Bandits. Again, one of the premier American Legion teams nationally, not just in Idaho. So way to go, guys.
Amazing, yeah.
Pretty incredible stuff. All right. We are into the school sports part of the year, though. We're getting into fall sports, and really the sport that really kicks it off, of course, golf we talked about, but soccer. A lot of soccer teams are going to be competing this weekend. Just a sampling boys and girls matchups. In girls soccer, you've got SugarSalem at Preston. Pocatello is going to play Highland in a little crosstown rivalry game. Century will be at, yeah, right. That'll be at Alameda Middle School. And then the rest of the games, I think, are going to be at the Portneuf Wellness Complex. Century's at Burley. Twin Falls will then play Highland on Saturday. So Highland plays Pocatello Friday, Twin Falls Saturday morning. Tetons at Marsh Valley. Shelley is at Preston. Those are the District 5 games. In girls soccer for District 6, you've got Rigby taking on Skyline, and Canyon Ridge will be at Thunder Ridge as well. And on the boys' side, it's a lot of the same matchups. SugarSalem at Preston, Highland playing Pocatello, Burley at Century, Teton at Marsh Valley. Highland's going to play Twin Falls on Saturday, Preston at Shelley as well. And then, into District 6, you've got Skyline and Rigby and Thunder Ridge, Canyon Ridge, and also Madison will be playing Hillcrest. And those are a pair of pretty good Hillcrest, typically pretty strong in soccer. So it's nice to see a lot of, if not most of the soccer teams begin competition this weekend.
Yeah, it comes fast and quick. They start early, and man, they get going off the blocks pretty quick, and it'll be interesting to see how the heat is. I feel like it's been super hot, and that'll be see how well everyone's conditioned right by the time these games get rolling.
Yeah, soccer is one of those sports where you're constantly moving. It's like a 2-hour jog. It's like you don't stop. So in football, there's breaks. You go to the huddle. In volleyball, there's breaks. You can call timeouts. In soccer, you're just kind of out there. So
you're going. Yeah, they pretty much play the whole game. They don't. In high school soccer, they can sub in and out more than per se like the professional, where you get like one sub or whatever and 2 subs per half or whatever. But they pretty much keep who's in there is in there. They don't make a lot of changes. Most of the high school soccer games I've been to. So pretty impressive stuff from those players.
Definitely. And the teams we're keeping an eye on this year are kind of the usual suspects. At the 5A, it's Highland. At the 4A, it's going to be Blackfoot. It's going to be really good. Hillcrest, Preston is always really solid. And then your 3As, American Falls, SugarSalem won the boys title last year. Teton also had a really nice run. So good luck to all the soccer teams as they begin competition this weekend. It's also the opening weekend for football, Sean. There's not a ton of it going on, but we did want to highlight a couple of the teams that will be in action. And I think we have to start with this big 5A non-conference matchup. It's a neutral site game. It's going to take place in Missoula, Montana, at the University of Montana's Washington Grizzly Stadium. It is going to be Rigby taking on Coeur d'Alene, 2 titans of the 5A ranks. This is going to be an awesome atmosphere.
It's going to be great. I just saw something about Rigby, and their coach Armando was just saying, because they always ask you, what are you guys trying to do? And we're just taking it one game at a time. And he was kind of like, yeah, our first game's kind of big. That's a big game to start out with. Powerhouses in 5A college football. Just what an opportunity for both teams. But that should be just a lot of fun up there.
Yeah, and we will be bringing you that game live on IdahoSports.com. I'll be on the call. I'm going back to my hometown, Sean. Missoula is the city I grew up in.
The game just happens to be there. Huh?
Hey, I mean, you got to take advantage when it's in your
Absolutely.
home city. I've been to more games than I can remember at Washington Grizzly Stadium. Those are all college games, of course, to watch the Montana Grizzlies. But I'm very excited to see a high school game take place at this great venue. As for the game itself, and again, that's Friday night, 7:00 on IdahoSports.com. As for the game itself, these are 2 teams that are kind of rebuilding a little bit. I mean, both Coeur d'Alene and Rigby lost a lot to graduation.
Yeah, I don't think either of their coaches would like that word, but Rigby's going to have a first-time starter. Flowers is the quarterback, and he's already got an offer to Arizona or Arizona State, I guess. I can't remember which Arizona it was, but he hasn't even started a game. He's already got an offer. So I'm pretty excited to see him play for Rigby. He kind of just looks like that prototypical 6-something quarterback, and I'm excited to see him play for Rigby because Rigby's had someone at quarterback pretty solid for the last few years.
Yes, Tiger Adolfo, who is now at Weber State. Yep. You mentioned Luke Flowers, the new quarterback for Rigby. He's gotten a lot of buzz on the summer circuit for sure. We just published today on IdahoSports.com our top 10 quarterbacks in the state of Idaho. This is kind of a, the editorial board at IdahoSports.com kind of comes up with the list, and we use a lot of different factors. And it's just, and I know I'm going to get questions about, well, how come, Luke Flowers wasn't on there?
He's never played.
It's hard to put a player on there that hasn't played a substantial amount. And so, it was a very senior heavy list. There was one junior, but it's going to be, you can check it out at IdahoSports.com. And by the way, we did that for every position in football, top 10 lists all throughout the summer. You can find all those on our site, IdahoSports.com. So yeah, Luke Flowers has been getting a lot of summer buzz. And Coeur d'Alene's breaking in a new quarterback as well. It's a junior, and his name is Jamison Kiziar, and similar deal. He's kind of been tearing it up on the summer camp circuit, and he's already got, a couple of schools lined up saying, hey, we're interested. So,
and this is one of the, as I look at the, the media poll and the coaches poll on IdahoSports.com, it's one of the first times I can remember that Coeur d'Alene isn't there. So that they're like in the receiving votes. So that's kind of a new territory for them. So it'll be a good proving ground for them. For a lot of people, I think that I wouldn't say you never write off Coeur d'Alene, but they're not at the tippity top where they have been in the past on some of those polls.
Yes, I will tell you that I vote in that poll every week. I did not have Coeur d'Alene in my top 5. I think Lewiston is really going to be the team to watch from the north this year. And I do like Rigby to repeat, though, as the High Country Conference champions. Highland's going to be good. Madison will be better. Thunder Ridge is breaking in a new coach that's got a familiar last name. It's Michael Berger, the son of legendary Skyline head coach Scott Berger.
Berger Bowl.
That's right. So that's going to be a pretty fun conference to watch this year. But I really do think it still all starts with Rigby and Highland at the top. And Highland hasn't been able to beat Rigby, the last several matchups. They lost.
We've been there for most of them.
Yes, we have. Yeah. I mean, they played for the 5A championship last year, and going in, I kind of predicted that Rigby would win by double digits, and that's what happened. And we kind of talked about Highland last week and how they're breaking in a new coach, Nick Sorrell, and
new quarterback as well too. So a lot of new quarterbacks this year. You're not going to see a ton of veterans. There's a few of them out there in District 5 and 6, but a lot of new guys kind of are going to get a chance to shine.
Yes, statewide for 5A this year, it's all in that Boise Valley. Rocky Mountain, Mountain View, Eagle, all return really good players. And so
Blackfoot returns their senior quarterback, Blackfoot again is the team I think that you're going to have to watch out for come late in the season, as long as the game's more than one point.
Yes, right. Big season for Blackfoot for sure. So yeah, wrapping up our 5A conversation, you've got Rigby playing at Coeur d'Alene, not at Coeur d'Alene, but in Missoula, kind of a neutral site game. And Thunder Ridge is also going to be in action. They are going to be traveling to Minico to play one of, I think, the better 4A teams in Minico. And that is a game that we'll be bringing you on IdahoSports.com Friday night at 7:00 as well. Mike Christensen and Carter Christensen, our Magic Valley guys, are going to be on the call for that. And so this will be an interesting test. I think I lean Minico slightly because they return like 19 of 22 starters from last year or something ridiculous like that. So.
And we saw Minico last year, and they're just kind of a really good, solid team at all aspects, and can just kind of control that game clock, I think, and that could be a big difference. And that should be an interesting matchup. It'd be interesting to see kind of what Thunder Ridge brings with the new head coach.
Definitely. And then the third 5A team that's going to be in action is Madison. They're traveling all the way to Owyhee over in Meridian. And I think
red versus red.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Owyhee is still a building program. I expect Madison to take care of business on the long trip over to play the Storm in just their second year of existence. 4A football. What's going on this week in the 4A ranks? Not much. In fact, nada, except for another neutral site game, a rematch of the opening game from last year. Preston is going to play Lakeland. And for the second year in a row, they're going to meet up at Montana Tech University in Butte, Montana to play.
And Preston's got a new head coach as well. And it should be interesting to see. They were, you kind of forget they were a field goal or away from beating Pocatello to win the conference last year. And I think Preston's ready to make some noise, and they want to make a deep playoff run. I know I've heard that from their camp, and it should be interesting to see. And Lakeland again is a team that I think is kind of in that rebuilding too, maybe, where they've got some newer players.
Yeah, Lakeland does return their starting running back from a year ago and their starting slot back, and they're both really fast, speedy guys. They both run on the 4x1 relay in track season. But the big question for them, and it was the same question last year, who's blocking up front and who can help pave the way for them? Last year when Preston and Lakeland met up in that season opener, Preston won 7-6.
Yeah.
It was, you remember that? Preston scored.
Yep, I remember now. Wasn't it like a late something they scored at the very end, I think, to win, right?
Yeah, Lakeland led that bad boy for a long stretch, and Preston came out. But they find a way to win, I've found, over the last couple of years. Preston, they're always in these close games. They always seem to find a way to come out on top. People forget Preston made the playoffs last year, and they were the 9 seed overall using the Max Preps rankings. Now they had to go play Shelley in the first round, and they lost, and that kind of ended their season. But, Preston is a team that brings back a couple of key pieces. You mentioned breaking in a new head coach, Craig Cunningham, former head coach Eric Thorson, who I thought did a tremendous job turning around what was a program that was down in the dumps, to be honest. He turned them around. He went back to Utah, where he's originally from, and it's like, a double punch to the stomach, because his son, Emery Thorson, was kind of an all-purpose player for Preston. He played quarterback, running back, receiver, returned kicks, played defense. He was going into his senior year, and he now is gone to Utah as well. So that's a double loss for Preston.
Yeah, but Preston still got a bunch of just good athletes, as we know from basketball and different stuff, and they all play. They usually always play football. So in Preston, they always have some 6'3" guy who can run really fast and jump, and they can go play football too. And like you said, they made a good playoff, or they made it to the playoff last year. They beat Blackfoot in a very close game, and like we said, Blackfoot could have beaten a lot of teams last year, and they beat Blackfoot. And I think again, 4A is just the most interesting division, I think, in all the divisions of football. I mean, we watched a lot of 4A games, me and you, and you never know. I mean, you don't know. And it comes down to just, I think, a lot of times experience and guys that have been in these positions. And, I think Preston brings back a good amount of guys that will have some good experience, and that'll be helpful for them.
Definitely. So they're the only 4A team that's in action. But I can tell you're dying to talk about Blackfoot. You brought him up a couple of times. So tell me what it is about Blackfoot that really stands out to you.
To me, is because we started talking about Rigby, and I remember being up at Rigby versus Blackfoot, and Blackfoot was the only team I thought legit had a chance to beat Rigby in a game I saw. Obviously, in Meridian, it was a shootout to the end, but I thought the games we watched in person, Blackfoot was the closest team to beating, and they had all kinds of opportunities and just couldn't capitalize of beating Rigby, which would have just, I can't imagine how that might have turned their season around or not. So, but I think Blackfoot brings back Javon King, the quarterback. You already talked about the running back. I think Ackley's a great coach. I think it seems to me they bring back the most senior skilled position people in kind of in the area, besides maybe a Skyline or something like that, who seems to always have seniors that have played 8 years or something. It seems like, right? They've always got another guy, and somehow they graduate and go somewhere. But credit to Skyline's program to always having another player, another person step up in those areas.
Yeah, Skyline Blackfoot are kind of on a collision course. You mentioned it. Blackfoot brings back Grimmett at quarterback, Austin Ramirez, who rushed for over 1,000 yards at running back, and two big, tall, 6'3", 6'4" wide receivers in Javonte King and Deegan Hale, who's also a great two-way player. So yeah, Blackfoot's got the skill guys. Now they lost a little bit defensively. They kind of lost the heart and soul of their defense in Bowen Robinson at linebacker. So we'll see, who steps up as a leader on that side of the ball. I'll admit, in my preseason poll that I voted on, I didn't have Blackfoot in the top 5. I didn't. And it's not because I don't think they're good. They would have been 6th, but I had Skyline 1, Sandpoint 2, Minico 3, Pocatello 4, and I put Bishop Kelly 5. And maybe I should have put Blackfoot there instead of BK, but
and a team we saw that was pretty good versus Highland in the playoffs, Skyview. They dropped down to 4A, and I think there's probably a question mark of how well they could do because they had chances to beat Highland in that game too. So that was a pretty good, I was pretty impressed with Skyview in that 5A matchup. So for that team to drop down to the 4A level, that they might be able to make a run too. We've seen that before when teams drop down, they kind of, can kind of get their way in there a little bit and, how to go against all that pressure and stuff.
Definitely. So you wanted to talk Blackfoot. I want to talk Skyline. I learned my lesson last year. Last year on this Prepcast, I came on every week of the playoffs and picked Skyline to lose, except their first game against Lakeland.
I wasn't there, Skyline fans. I just wanted to know that.
Yeah, Sean is absolved of any wrongdoing here. Because I ended up calling all of Skyline's games except for the championship. So I got to see them play, and they would always start slow and, they'd get down by a couple of scores, and then they'd have to, rally back. And I kept thinking, there's going to be a time where they're not going to be able to do that. They almost lost to Lakeland. Lakeland led that game in the fourth quarter in the opening round last year in the playoffs. They won that. Then they get to the next week, and kind of the same deal. They were playing. Oh man, I'm trying to remember who they were playing now. I'm drawing a blank there. But then they played Pocatello in the semis, and I thought, man, Pocatello will run them out of Holt Arena if Skyline, gifts them some early opportunities. And to be fair, they did. Pocatello went up by double-digit, points, but Skyline was able to rally back and find a way. And so I've learned my lesson. Everybody, I'm not really welcome around Skyline anymore.
Oh, no.
They're not, they don't like me too much, and that's okay. But I'm going to beat the drum for Skyline all year this year, because until they prove it, they're the top dog. Until somebody knocks them off, they are the 2-time defending 4A champs. They bring back Lachlan Hackey at quarterback. Obviously, Kenyon Sadiq, the best prospect in the entire state of Idaho, just committed to the Oregon Ducks a couple of days ago. They bring back Caden Taggart, who's a great slot back, Abron Severio at running back. They're loaded. They're ready to go again. And
their defense is always good. Skyline's defense is always good. I just remember reading a quote from one of them in the paper, and how he knew the play was coming and made the interception. And they've always got really good, schemes and defense. And I think those coaches obviously prepare their players at a very high level. So, I would never count them out of a game just by their coaching staff and the way they always can get the best out of these players.
Yep. Rest of District 6, Hillcrest is still trying to build up the pieces. Brennan Mossholder in his second year as coach there. Bonneville, kind of the same thing. I think Kev Kempf has done a tremendous job turning around a Bonneville program that was pretty low. Got them to the playoffs last year. They had to play Pocatello in the first round, and went with an interesting strategy. They basically ran ball control and really ran the clock down. That was a quick game. They did end up losing, but there's just an energy and a renewed, excitement around that Bonneville program. But I think the team outside of Skyline and Blackfoot that has the best chance of breaking through is Shelley.
Yeah, we got to see Shelley there. They were really good. And, the games we broadcast, they were amazing. And then they would play some teams and not do very well, and it was kind of hard to get a read on, kind of what that team was bringing every week. And but man, when we were able to watch them, I was very impressed with them on the defense side of the ball, and then just their ability to get out and really just kind of run you into the ground, run you into the spud cellar, you know.
I mean, it was a real Jekyll and Hyde. They love to run the ball. I call them the run and russets, because that's what they do. They pound you with the ball. Riker Klinger, over 1,000 yards rushing last year. They play really good defense. They were the 8 seed going into the playoffs last year, won their first game against Preston, as we said. And then, they went up to Sandpoint, the number 1 seed, and they led. It was either second quarter or third quarter, but they had a lead on the number 1 team from Sandpoint, a team that got all the way to the championship. So I think the potential is there. Josh Wells has done a phenomenal job assisting Shelley as they've made that transition from 3A to 4A. They took their lumps early. They were one of the worst teams in 4A football because they were one of the smallest. But now, with good coaching and good classes coming through, Shelley's going to be right there also.
Yeah, they're really good. It'll be interesting to see too. Idaho Falls drops down to 4A too.
Oh yes, I totally spaced that.
They had some interesting games last year for sure too. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. They had chances to beat teams, and yeah, I mean, they almost beat Skyline. They were beating Skyline, I think, for a good portion of the game.
They did. They won that game. They did win the emotion ball.
They did. Yeah. So they were a team kind of. They got some big wins, and they were on track to go to the playoffs. And then Madison kind of at the end of the year won a few games, beat Rigby, and they got that spot. But I think at the start of the season and midway through, we're thinking Idaho Falls was a playoff team.
Yeah, they started 5-0, lost to Rigby, and that was that controversial ending of the game with Rigby where, players were shoving each other and there was accusations of bad sportsmanship on both sides, and we don't need to rehash that. But from there, I thought you got Idaho Falls' best effort of the season. The very next week, it was the Emotion Bowl against Skyline, and they won that wild back and forth game. I think it was 38-34 the final. And from there, I think they just were spent. They'd put so much into the Rigby stuff and the Skyline, and they didn't win again. They lost to Highland, lost to Madison, and the season was over. So it'll be interesting to see. They lost a lot to graduation. They lost a lot. So we'll see how Idaho Falls does as they transition down. In District 5, I think it's Pocatello's league still. I mean, Pokey looks good. They've got Reich and Echo Hawk, back at running back. Julian Bowie out at wide receiver. They've got some good offensive and defensive linemen, and
maybe the best cornerback. Caden Hale
Crew Hales.
Excuse me, Crew Hales. Yeah, he's a fun guy to watch for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. And I just think Preston had to replace a lot. Century, is still young. Century so last year Century lost like 20 of 22 starters or something ridiculous, plus the coach. They had a coach, Logan Horrocks, for 1 year. He's gone. Ryan Fleischman's in there. We talked about this a lot last week, and I think Century's going to be a tough opponent. I'm not going to want to play Century because you're going to get a great effort, and I just don't know that they have the depth still to compete at the upper echelon.
Yeah, it's definitely a program that's kind of going to have to rebuild when you have so many coaching changes. You just kind of lose a lot of that depth and trying to get kids to come out and play. And, I think Ryan Fleischman's done a really good job at that, and he's getting the kids out there, and it's going to take him a couple of years. It was actually pretty cool today at Century High School. ISU did their final, Idaho State University did their final fall scrimmage out there. Because they wanted to get a practice on real grass because UNLV, they play on real grass. So that was kind of cool. They had everyone out there today, and they were going to pick their quarterback at the end of that practice. I don't know if that happened yet or not, but yeah. So Idaho State was out there on the real grass.
And I'll tell you just real quick that, we don't talk college football a ton on this, but, Idaho State's done a pretty good job, I think, of picking up some good players from the state of Idaho. That had kind of been neglected with the previous coaching regime and with new head coach, Charlie Regal, coming in. You've got kids from all over the state of Idaho and from all 3 of the Pocatello schools. You look at Deontay Lang from Century, who's a defensive lineman. You've got Hershey from Highland, who's going to be the kicker as a true freshman. Their quarterback last year for Highland, Jack Whitmer, he's on the team. He's listed as a running back. They've got a West Side kid, Bryler Shirtliff. So, I mean, it's good to see Idaho State, recommitting to, you can't build an entire program of Idaho kids and win, right? That would be ridiculous to think, but there's good players in Idaho that can help supplement your program for sure.
And it creates a buzz and it gets people interested. And, we see that going across the state, broadcasting games, just kind of getting that buzz and community involved makes the experience really fun, no matter really the outcome. Obviously everyone wants to win, but I think they're creating a better vibe and setting some better standards in the communities of not just Pocatello, but Idaho in general. I know that the head coach went all over and met with tons of high school coaches, so right off the back, so that's just a really good thing, I think, for just Idaho State in general.
Definitely. And we'll wrap up with a look at 3A football. We'll leave 2A and 1A for next time because there really aren't any game. Soda Springs is the only 2A team that's playing this week. So we'll leave the 2A, 1A conversation for next week when those teams all start to get into competition. But at the 3A level, you've got SugarSalem, who got all the way to the championship game last year, played Weezer. They were going for their third title in a row, and it was the most epic game I've probably ever been on the call for, where, gets to double overtime. Weezer scores first, Sugar answers, and they decide to go for 2 and the win. And they throw a little pass in the flat to Carson Harris, who is back as a junior running back, by the way. And he meets Brett Spencer head on for Weezer. Spencer makes the goal line tackle. 2-point conversion denied. Weezer wins the title by a point. And Brett Spencer, by the way, he's another one of those Idaho kids that's now at Idaho State University.
Yeah, that's just great. Yeah, that was a great game. And it should be, it should be Sugar and Weezer and probably like something like Homedale. Probably those three will be at the very top again. And I like these really kind of tough matchups at the start of the season. I like that as a coach. I think that's great. Someone said, having a tough game at the season doesn't matter a whole bunch unless it's a district opponent, right? You definitely want to win those district ones so you can get in the playoffs, but to go out and just give your team, kind of that chip on the face, that little just punch in the face to get them going, I think that's a great opportunity.
Yeah, and so Sugar, they're running into the problem now where nobody wants to play them. Because they've been so dominant, they're having a hard time filling the schedule. So during baseball season, SugarSalem made it to state for the first time in a couple of years in baseball. And I was talking to their baseball coach, Brady Gardner, about it. He's also the offensive coordinator for the football team. And he told me, this was in May. This was like late May. And he said, we're still not over that loss to Weezer. We are still not over that loss. And he said, I will tell you this, I would not want to be the first team we play out of the gates in 2022. And that opponent is 2A Soda Springs. I think it's going to be ugly. Soda Springs is a team that struggled last year. Injuries really hurt that program. Plus, it's a 3A versus a 2A. Sugar's going to flex their muscles a little bit. Too bad Soda Springs couldn't get a check for $600,000 like Idaho State's going to get from
UNLV. A little sponsorship there or something, but
yeah,
but again, if you're Soda Springs and you're trying to get that program going, maybe you're probably not going to win that game, but you're kind of setting the tone of what you want to do as a program. And like I said, I really like that. And to speak of SugarSalem, is as a coach, I know I can remember the losses 100 times better than I can remember the wins. So I understand how they're ready to get out of the gates and get going on it for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. And for Soda Springs, there is an opportunity. 2A football is kind of wide open this year, and we'll talk more about that next week when all of their other contemporaries take the field. Okay, the last game that's taking place in East Idaho this week, it's Friday night, 6:00, and it is SugarSalem's one of their biggest rivals, South Fremont. They are hosting Wood River, and so this is kind of the new experiment. Wood River is a 4A school. They have 4A enrollment numbers. They compete in 4A athletics in every sport except football. They petitioned to play down at the 3A level. They were granted that exception, and now they're going to travel to South Fremont Friday night. If I'm the Cougars, here's how I look at it. these guys are going to try and come into our classification and push us around. That's not happening. We're going to send them back to 4A with their, tail tucked between their legs. That's how I'm approaching it if I'm a South Fremont player.
Yeah, I mean, Wood River as football has, I think historically kind of struggled. They've kind of almost won some games, though. I can remember some just kind of weird games when we used to be part of that great, when Century, Preston, and Pocatello used to be part of that great Basin conference when we had 9 teams, 10 teams. Sometimes Wood River would be that Detroit Lions team. They haven't won a game all season, and you don't want to be the team that doesn't beat them. You know what I mean? And so that could be Wood River this year. I mean, there's a lot of tough. That's just a hard. You move down to 4A, but you're not. I mean, that 3A division football is not weak. There's not a lot of teams that you sometimes don't think could really go up against some 4A teams.
Yeah, and I guess here here comes my first hot take of the season, and
Skyline fans.
No, it's got nothing to do with Skyline. And I'll gladly come back and wear it. But you have to give me at least a year and probably 2 before I come back and say, because here's what I think is going to happen with Wood River. They're a program that has been down in the dumps, right? They've really struggled at the 4A level. They lost during the COVID year. Because Blaine County was so restrictive with, COVID levels and not allowing them to play anybody outside of the county. Finally, Wood River and Cary, the only 2 high school teams in Blaine County, got together and said, hey, do you want to just play a game so we can, have something to do? Now, this is where it gets tricky, right? Wood River plays 11-man football. Cary plays 8-man football. And you're talking about, at the time, Cary was a 1A D2, the smallest classification in the state of Idaho. So they said, okay, when Wood River has the ball, we'll play 11 on 11. And when Cary has the ball, we'll play 8 on 8. And kind of a hodgepodge game, but Cary won by, 35, 40 points. I mean, Wood River got their doors blown off by a 1A D2 school. And so I think that this move for Wood River is going to backfire. They're moving down to 3A because they think if they can play against smaller schools, get some wins, get some excitement, get more kids out for the team, okay, then we can come back to 4A and be competitive. But what happens if you go down to 3A and you still lose and you keep losing, and now you're losing to 3A schools? You're not going to be able to go down to 2A. You've already shown you can't beat a 1A D2 school. I think it's going to backfire, and they're going to struggle at the 3A level, and that's going to cause less kids to turn out. They're going to go, boy, we can't even beat 3A schools. I could be wrong, but I check back in 2 years when the next classification cycle's up. But I think this move backfires for them.
Yeah, it's kind of the first we've ever seen, right? I can't think of another thing like this. Sometimes in the 1A, 2A, you kind of get some different things, but I've never seen this particular scenario. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard. Like, hey, we're a 4A school, their boys tennis team won state in 4A this year. They have great, numbers come out for that, but I guess it's a hard sell too. They're a really good soccer school usually. Their boys play good, play soccer. So, I would imagine, I don't know Wood River's numbers off my top, but I just don't feel like they're a really high 4A school. I wouldn't imagine they're at the top of 4A numbers either. So there's only so many guys you can get in the fall to come play your sport. So it'd be hard to be like, hey, come play 3A football or come play 4A soccer. And golf too, moving. I think affects some of those football smaller programs too. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. It's something new. So yeah, I'm willing to just see what happens. I just don't like kind of what it set. I just don't like the idea of schools being able to do that personally. I just think if that's your level, or that's your numbers, and find a way to compete and get better. And I don't know what you do, but I don't like moving, because your numbers.
But stay in your classification and do what Caldwell's doing. Play an independent schedule, and fill your schedule that way where you're not in the conference technically to get a chance to build it up. But yeah, dropping down to 3A, I agree. I don't like it.
So is Wood River in a conference then?
They are. They're in the same conference as Buell and Filer and Gooding and Kimberly.
Oh.
And they'll play all those teams. And
those are good. Those are good teams.
I know that's what I'm saying. I don't.
That's tough.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see how this experiment goes. But you're right. I'm not trashing Wood River in terms of overall athletics. They're very strong. You mentioned tennis. They're awesome. Soccer. They're always really good. Their girls athletics are phenomenal. Their volleyball team was awesome last year. And so was their girls basketball team. And so it's one of those things where football just isn't there. And that happens at some schools. I mean, it's happening at Caldwell. So
it's how many guys do you need to play, right? First of all, you need a large number. And football programs take years to build. You've got to have that mentality from 7th grade, 6th grade till whenever they're going to get to high school and build those programs. And we know that's the case for programs like Westside, who builds those kids up probably from the day they're born. It was what I feel. But you can't just all of a sudden go, we're going to have a football program. There's too many people, there's too many pieces, and it takes time and perseverance, I think, for football.
Definitely. So we'll like I said, we'll check back in maybe at the end of the season or in 2 years. And hey, I would love to be wrong. I would love to see Wood River go out and compete and get that program built back up. But that's my opinion. I don't know that it's going to happen. And again, if I'm wrong, I'll come back and wear it. I'm going to be the most hated man in the state of Idaho. So.
Well, you got to take it. You don't go to NASCAR to see the race. You go to see the crash, right? So we might see Brandon crash, or maybe he finishes the race. We'll tune in.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, let's get out of here on that note. There's going to be a great weekend of competition. And again, a couple of broadcasts for you Friday night on IdahoSports.com. Thunder Ridge at Minico, 7:00 Friday night. And also that game up in Missoula between Rigby and Coeur d'Alene. That will also be Friday night at 7:00. And that is Mountain Time. Missoula is in the Mountain Time zone. So 7:00 Mountain Time, that kickoff there. So, all right, Sean, I'm ready. I'm ready for the first weekend of competition. Yeah. It's going to be good.
It's going to be exciting. We've got endless opportunities to watch things and be a part of, and and coming back from all the COVID stuff, I think everyone's just real excited to get back into sports and play and be with their families and community and just have that essence of togetherness. And I'm real excited to experience that this fall.
Definitely. All right. Well, good luck. I know you're getting back into a new school year. Sean's a teacher at Century High School. Good luck to the start of the year. Good luck to all of our teachers and coaches that are doing this. You don't get paid enough. You get nothing but flack all the time. And if you're one of those parents, knock it off. All right. leave our teachers and coaches alone. They're doing a great job. So
I agree.
Yes. As a teacher, you have to say that.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, everyone goes out and works, every teacher, every coach, they work really hard. Even if you don't like them, they still work really hard. So, just keep that in mind. And like I always, tell everyone kind of when school starts, just go out and do one nice thing every day. Like, someone needs help with something off the shelf, just help them get it down. And that can make a big difference. Just, one nice thing a day.
One nice thing a day. That's not, that's a good podcast title. I'm writing it
easy
down right now. Yep.
I not as good as the face melting one, but
yeah. Well, not every title is a 10. Sometimes there's 6s and 7s, but that was a good 7. All right. Thanks for hanging out with us. We will be back next week to break down what happened in the opening week of soccer and football. We'll talk a little volleyball as that gets going next week as well. And of course, the Rocky Mountain Rumble coming up next weekend as well. So until then, thanks for tuning into the East Idaho Prepcast. For Sean Kane, I'm Brandon Baney. We'll see you next time on IdahoSports.com.